The centrifuge hummed as I stood frozen outside my boss's office, listening to words that would destroy everything. "Just reclassify the severe cases," he said into his phone. "Nobody checks the raw data once it's submitted." My hand shook on the door handle. In that moment, holding evidence of a crime that would hospitalize 47 people, I had two choices: stay silent and keep my job, or speak up and lose everything. I chose to lose everything. My name is Michael Roberts, and for 8 years, I was Director of Clinical Data Management at Pinnacle Pharmaceuticals in Newark. Every morning at 6:45 a.m., I'd arrive with my black coffee and review the overnight data transfers. I had this ritual, adjusting my father's old Timex, the one he gave me before complications from diabetes took him. That watch reminded me why accuracy mattered. My dad died because his medication had contamination issues that slipped through quality checks. The pharmacy, the manufacturer, the regulators, everyone assumed someone else was watching. I swore that would never happen under my oversight. I wasn't perfect. My ex-wife would tell you I was obsessive about details, terrible at office politics, couldn't see the forest for the trees. She was probably right. At office parties, I was the guy in the corner explaining statistical significance while everyone else talked about the game. But my team respected me. "Michael," Sarah, my lead analyst, used to say, "you're the only boss I've had who actually reads our reports." That's because I started as a data analyst, verifying patient outcomes and adverse events. I knew what it felt like to spot a safety signal that could save lives. I remembered my daughter Emma's face when she asked why Grandpa's hands shook so much. "Bad medicine," I told her, which was both a lie and the truth. Pinnacle wasn't Goldman Sachs or Google. Mid-sized, family-owned until 2018, specializing in arthritis and pain management drugs. We had 1,200 employees, most of whom had been there over a decade. But by the time Richard Thompson showed up, those patient-first posters in our hallways had started peeling at the corners. The cafeteria where I ate lunch alone, reading medical journals, buzzed with anxiety. 3 rounds of layoffs in 2 years. Stock price down 40%. From my office overlooking the parking lot, I watched consultants tour our facilities, their tablets out, calculating which departments could be optimized. The parking lot that used to overflow now had empty sections, like gaps in teeth. Richard arrived in March 2021 as VP of Regulatory Affairs. 45 MBA from Wharton, previously at a company known for aggressive marketing. Silver hair, marathon runner, photos of his ski trips to Aspen on his desk. I first really noticed him at the company 5K charity run. He lapped me twice, waving each time with that practiced politician's smile. He wasn't a cartoon villain. That's what made him dangerous. He genuinely believed that getting drugs to market faster helped patients, that regulations were obstacles rather than safeguards. In his mind, he was the hero. Our first real confrontation wasn't in an office. It was at the Marriott downtown during the Northeast Pharma Conference. I was presenting our Phase 3 safety data when Richard interrupted from the audience. "Michael, could you clarify why you're emphasizing these minor enzyme elevations? Aren't we seeing similar rates in the placebo group?" The room turned to me. 200 industry professionals waiting. The placebo rate is 0.8%. Our drug shows 8%. That's a 10-fold increase. He smiled, standing now. But both are under 10%, which FDA considers acceptable for drugs treating serious conditions, correct? It was technically true, but deliberately misleading. Context matters. These aren't random elevations. "Thank you, Michael. Let's discuss details offline." He'd made his point. To the audience, I looked like an alarmist. That's when I knew we had a problem. Over the next months, Richard's pressure came in unexpected places. At my daughter's soccer game, he appeared on the sidelines. His niece played for the opposing team, supposedly. "Great game," he said, loud enough for other parents to hear. "You know, Michael, my door's always open if you want to discuss your concerns about the trial. I value different perspectives." The other parents smiled approvingly. I looked rigid, unfriendly. He was building a narrative. The pressure intensified as Pinnacle's stock continued sliding. At the company holiday party at the Hilton, Richard gave a speech about sailing through storms together. He pointed me out specifically. "Michael Roberts, our data integrity champion, sometimes sees icebergs where others see clear sailing. That's why we need him, to keep us honest." Everyone applauded. I was painted as the overcautious worrier, tolerated but not trusted. By December 2021, the liver signals hadn't improved. We'd completed enrollment, and the rate held steady at 8 to 9%. But there was something worse. 2 patients had developed elevated bilirubin, suggesting serious liver dysfunction. I discovered this not in the office but at home, reviewing data on my personal laptop because I no longer trusted the company systems. My wife, we were still together then, found me at 3 a.m. at the kitchen table surrounded by printouts. "What are you doing?" "Finding what they're trying to hide." She looked at the papers, at me, at the coffee pot I'd emptied twice. "Michael, is this worth losing everything over?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. That's when Richard brought in Dr. Jennifer Walsh. I met her not in a conference room but at Romano's, an upscale Italian place downtown. Richard had invited key stakeholders to a strategic dinner. Between the appetizers and entrees, Dr. Walsh explained her approach. "Statistical analysis is an art," she said, swirling her wine. "The same data can tell different stories depending on how you frame the question." "Data doesn't tell stories," I said. "It reveals facts." She laughed. "Michael, you're charmingly naive. Do you know how many FDA-approved drugs would never have made it to market with that philosophy? How many people would have suffered without access to treatment?" The table was quiet, everyone waiting to see whose side they should take. Richard raised his glass. "To balanced perspectives," he said. Everyone toasted, except me. The breaking point came in February 2022. Not in a meeting, but at the local CVS pharmacy. I'd gone to pick up my blood pressure medication. The stress had taken its toll, when I saw an elderly woman at the counter. "I need to fill this prescription for Inflexicure," she said. "My doctor says it's still in trials, but my insurance approved it for compassionate use." My blood went cold. Compassionate use meant Richard was already distributing the drug based on our manipulated data. I watched her struggle to open her purse with arthritic hands, counting out bills for the copay. I wanted to scream, to tell her what I knew. Instead, I left without my medication. That night, I called Richard from my car, parked outside a 24-hour diner on Route 1. "You're already distributing it?" "Compassionate use for severe cases. All legal, all documented. Based on falsified safety data. Based on FDA-reviewed protocols. Michael, you need to be very careful about making accusations you can't prove." The threat was clear. I hung up and went into the diner, where I spent 3 hours filling my notebook with every detail I could remember, while truckers and shift workers ate around me. The waitress, Rosa, kept refilling my coffee. "You writing a book?" she asked. "Something like that." The termination came March 17, 2022, but the humiliation was orchestrated perfectly. Richard had scheduled an all-hands meeting about organizational restructuring. I thought I was safe in the crowd. Instead, halfway through, he announced difficult decisions. "Michael Roberts has been a valuable contributor, but we're moving in a direction that requires different skills." He had security waiting at the door. In front of 200 colleagues, I was escorted out. The walk to the elevator felt like miles. Someone had already boxed my belongings. In the parking garage, local news was waiting. Richard had tipped them about major restructuring at Pinnacle. "Mr. Roberts, is it true you were terminated for refusing to support the company's new drug development?" I couldn't answer without violating NDAs. On the evening news, I looked like a disgruntled employee who couldn't adapt. My daughter saw it at her friend's house. She came home crying. The next months were brutal beyond just job hunting. At Emma's parent-teacher conference, her teacher mentioned she'd been in fights. She says other kids call her dad a snitch and a liar. At the grocery store, former colleagues would see me and suddenly remember something in another aisle. My wife started working double shifts to cover bills. The tension destroyed us. By June, she'd moved to her sister's place with Emma. "I can't watch you destroy yourself and take us down with you," she said. I moved to a one-bedroom apartment in Edison. Cheaper, farther from everything. The isolation was complete. I spent July 4th alone, watching fireworks from a strip mall parking lot, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. Then came the overdose reports. Not deaths, but hospitalizations. Young mother in California, construction worker in Texas, elderly man in Florida, all liver failure, all on compassionate use in Flexicure. The news buried it on page 6. Pinnacle's statement called them unrelated incidents in complex patients. I knew better. At 2 a.m. on a humid Tuesday, I drove to Pinnacle's headquarters and stood in the empty parking lot where I'd once parked for 8 years. I thought about those patients, about my father, about Emma who wouldn't talk to me. I made my decision. The next morning, I didn't use a library computer. I drove to the FDA's Criminal Division office in Silver Spring, Maryland, 4 hours each way. I handed them everything: my notebooks, printouts, emails I'd forwarded to my personal account before being locked out. The investigator, Agent Patricia Kim, looked tired until she started reading. Then her eyes sharpened. "You're willing to testify?" "I'm willing to do whatever it takes. It could take years. You might never work in pharma again. People are dying." She nodded. "We'll be in touch." The investigation moved slowly. Richard, meanwhile, was thriving. I saw him on CNBC discussing innovative approaches to drug development. He mentioned me once, obliquely. "Sometimes good people can't see the bigger picture. We wish them well." In November 2022, I was at a laundromat when Tom Martinez called. I'd been doing my own laundry at midnight to avoid running into anyone I knew. "Michael, something big is happening. FBI agents with boxes. Richard's office is sealed." My hands shook as I folded a shirt. "Don't call me again. They could be listening." I had to tell someone who'd understand. The story broke in January 2023. FBI investigates Pinnacle Pharmaceuticals for data fraud. Richard's photo on every news site. But the narrative was alleged, and investigating, and no charges filed. Pinnacle stock dropped 20%, then recovered. Richard hired a crisis management firm. The story became about regulatory overreach and innovation under attack. I was subpoenaed in March 2023. The grand jury testimony was brutal. 6 hours of questions. Richard's lawyers trying to paint me as unstable, vengeful, delusional. They had photos from my apartment complex's security cameras, showing me coming home at odd hours, looking disheveled. "Is this the behavior of a stable individual?" they asked. But I had something more powerful, the truth. And gradually, others found courage. Sarah testified about pressure to alter reports. A quality control technician revealed he'd been told to destroy samples. Dr. Walsh's previous company had 3 executives willing to testify about her methods. The real turning point came from an unexpected source. Richard's own daughter, Jennifer, a medical student at Columbia, had been reviewing Inflexicure data for a class project. She found discrepancies her father couldn't explain. She didn't testify, but she stopped speaking to him. That detail leaked to the press. The narrative shifted. During this period, I survived on freelance data analysis, working remotely under a pseudonym. $20 an hour, no benefits. I ate ramen and sandwiches. My apartment's heat was shut off in February 2024 for non-payment. I spent a week wrapped in blankets, typing with fingerless gloves, determined to see this through. The trial began in March 2025. The courthouse in Newark was packed. I testified for 3 days, but the most powerful moment wasn't in the courtroom. During a recess in the hallway, one of the hospitalized patients, Maria Gonzalez, approached me. She was 34, a teacher, walking with a cane because the liver damage had caused neurological complications. "My daughter asks why mommy can't play anymore," she said, loud enough for everyone, including Richard, to hear. What do I tell her? Richard actually flinched. For the first time, I saw uncertainty in his eyes. Maria looked at him directly. "I trusted you with my life." He looked away. The jury deliberated 5 days. I spent them in that same diner on Route 1, Rosa still working nights. "You finished that book?" she asked. "Almost," I said. Guilty on all counts. At sentencing in July 2025, the judge allowed victim impact statements. 47 people had been hospitalized. 12 spoke. Richard's expression never changed until his own daughter's letter was read by the prosecutor. She couldn't be there but wanted her words heard. "My father taught me to help people. I became a doctor to follow his example. Now I know his example was a lie. He chose money over lives. I choose those lives over him." Richard got 12 years. As they led him away, he looked at me. Not with anger, but something like confusion, as if he still couldn't understand how his vision of success had led here. The aftermath was anticlimactic. Pinnacle folded. Those 1,700 jobs vanished. I was vindicated but unemployable in Big Pharma. The whistleblower label was tattooed on my reputation. But slowly, things improved. My ex-wife called after the verdict. "Emma wants to see you." That first meeting at a Starbucks was awkward, but it was a start. A small biotech in Boston, run by Dr. Rachel Green, who'd followed the case, offered me a position. "We need someone who can't be bought," she said simply. "The pay is half what I made at Pinnacle, but I sleep without medication now." Sarah works at a hospital lab. She sends Christmas cards with photos of her kids. Tom Martinez retired to Florida and sends fishing photos with notes. The fish don't lie about their weight. Last month, Maria Gonzalez emailed. She's walking without the cane now, teaching full-time again. Her daughter is learning piano. "She plays because you gave her mother back," Maria wrote. "Thank you for choosing truth over comfort." That's what it was. A choice between comfort and truth, silence and speech, my family's security and strangers' lives. Some days I still question if I chose right, especially when Emma mentions she couldn't afford the college she wanted, or when I see former colleagues driving cars I'll never own. But then I adjust my father's watch, still losing time, still ticking, and I remember, we're all losing time. The only question is, what we do with what's left. Richard traded his time for money and spent both in a cell. I traded my career for truth and gained something harder to measure. The ability to look at my reflection without flinching, to answer Emma's questions without lying, to know that 47 people are alive because someone finally said no. The watch keeps ticking in a world where truth costs everything and buys something priceless. The knowledge that when tested, you didn't break. You bent, you nearly shattered, but you held. And sometimes, that's all the victory you get, and all you need.